Everybody from 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's the Kings Promotions weigh-in show. Big main event tomorrow night. Greg Outlaw and Edgar Torres. Marc Abrams here with Kings Promotions own Andrew Foy. Andrew, we're closing in our weigh-in. We got a terrific 7-bout card tomorrow night here, starting at 8 p.m. at the 2300 Arena.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great show. Can't wait. All the fights are lined up, and we'll see how they do with the weights now.
Well, our main event, we got Greg Outlaw taking on Edgar Torres. What are your thoughts on this great main event that Marshall and you guys have planned for tomorrow night?
Well, I mean, we're going to see how both guys rebound from the first loss of their career. Edgar Torres lost his first fight on our last show to Kayshawn Hutchinson, who's also going to be in action tomorrow night. And then we have Greg Outlaw, who lost his first fight to Andrew Rogers on the last event. I think Edgar probably has a little more to prove than Greg does. Greg's close was a pretty competitive fight. Andrew Rogers is known to be a tough out. Personally, I thought Greg did enough to win the fight. Didn't get the nod. Edgar, a little bit different story. He got blitzed by Kayshawn Hutchinson. We'll see how he responds. Greg Outlaw has a win over Kayshawn Hutchinson, obviously much earlier in his career. Kayshawn probably wasn't the same fighter back then, but it'll be interesting. And so, there's definitely some intrigue there.
Well, the word intrigue is perfect segue from my next thing. The main event, as we mentioned, Outlaw against Torres. But I guess the biggest intrigue here, and the biggest fight for local interest, is the return of Christian Cardo. Christian, who about 2.5 years in this ring, right behind us, suffered his first defeat. He's back in there. He's taking on Jason Vargas, 17-7, 12 knockouts out of Colombia. Obviously, Christian, who has a massive fan base here in the Philadelphia area, looking to get back, not only in the win column, but I'm sure he wants to look good in front of his fans tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I expect him to. I think Jason Vargas is not going to be a walkover. 24 fights in his career. He's won 17 of them. But Christian definitely has the tools to win this fight. I think it'll be a competitive fight. It'll be interesting to see how Christian looks. I mean, is he going to be a little bit gun shy? I don't expect that we're going to see that. I think he's going to put on a great performance, and it's going to be a really good fight. I mean, in these weight classes, normally fighters are pretty aggressive, throw a lot of punches, and they're great action fights. So I expect to see that for however long this fight lasts tomorrow. But I think Christian will win and get him out of there.
See Christian Cardo's in front of us, getting ready to talk to the commissioner, Greg Serb. The customary paperwork done. They actually put you to work before you came on. That's why we're a little late.
There's always stuff to do when you're promoting fights, Marc.
Paperwork and stuff like that, and everything like that. Let's go down there. And another real intriguing fight. Elijah Morales taking on Kenny Davila. Morales, the last time he fought here for us, it was amazing. The fan base. It's one thing for Cardo, who actually lives in the city, lives close to to the 2300 Arena. Has got a lot of support here in South Philadelphia. Morales brought I think he brought half of Trenton with him.
Yeah, and I think he's going to have a big turnout again tomorrow night. He's a real, entertaining young fighter. This is going to be a tougher test for him. Davia is, probably a bit more sturdy of an opponent, and I think he'll test Elijah a little bit. I expect Elijah to come out victorious, and it'll be a good fight.
Morales, who had a great experience working with Kings Promotions, hopefully this is a good relationship, because obviously not only does he have, much like Cardo, the intangibles, the fan base, but he can also fight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a little small for his weight class. So one thing that we'll see is does he move down in his upcoming fights? He's a real stocky, muscular welterweight, but a bit shorter. So yes, we'll see how he does.
we'll get to we got fans of Humberto Camarena Jr. So hopefully we'll get to his fight. He's I believe he's going to be up first tomorrow night. So we'll get to him.
That fight might be one of the sleepers on the card.
So
we'll talk about it, but that has all the trappings of a King's Promotions fight.
And Jay Kaufman checks in the mail.
Right.
Checks in the mail, and Pat Mahomes a little overrated. But anyway, we'll talk about that. No, Pat Mahomes is great. The only reason why I say that, a couple weeks ago we were chatting online, and we nice chat.
I know Jay. I know Jay's a big.
I was trying to help him out with something, and the last thing he says to me, by the way, the Eagles suck. I mean, I'm trying to help him out. That's the thanks I get. Unbelievable, Jay. And I'm sure he's going to post another anti-Eagles thing now. We'll put it up. Let's keep going down the list here. Kayshawn Hutchinson, one of the hottest fighters in Philadelphia, or not Philadelphia, in this whole area. He's now 8-5-2. He's won 4 in a row, taking on Andre Bird, 8-10-2 out of Jacksonville, Florida. Kayshawn Hutchinson has really turned it around over the last year and a half or so, scoring some upsets. He beat the guy fighting the main event, and he's very adamant. He wants the winner of this main event from Saturday night.
Yeah, and
Friday night. I'm always thinking.
And should he win this fight, he certainly deserves that. Yeah, I mean, Kayshawn's had a tremendous turnaround the last couple years. I've said it before. He's one of the hottest fighters in Pennsylvania. I mean, his resume of wins has been really fantastic over this five-win streak that he's on. I think this fight, again, this is a classic King's Promotions fight. I mean, Andre Bird is not a guy he's not coming in here to lay down. He's going to test Kayshawn. He's tough. He's sturdy. I mean, where do you see him at the weigh-in? I mean, he's built like a brick shithouse. So, I mean, you got two guys.
We're allowed to curse.
Right. I knew that, Marc. But, I mean, similar frames. I think similar styles. And I think it's going to be a really good fight. I think Kayshawn will come out on top of this one. But, yeah, I mean, if you're a Hutchinson fan, you gotta come out and support your man for this one.
What do you think has been what have you seen in him that has, maybe been the spark to this turnaround?
Well, I think some of it's confidence, but also, a guy like Kayshawn, he did box as an amateur, but he didn't have an illustrious amateur career. And I think what you see for some of these guys, especially ones that aren't necessarily blue chip prospects. I mean, you get these blue chip prospects, they've had 50 to 100 amateur fights. They've been to the national, international level. You know what you can expect from them because, they've already fought as an amateur at a relatively high level in the pro ranks when you get that far. A guy like Kayshawn and a lot of these fighters, they've never experienced that, and they're learning as they go, and they're still developing their style, developing their confidence. And every time I think they get in the ring, they get more confident. And that's what I think we're seeing with Kayshawn more than anything is just he's been developing his craft and developing his confidence and developing his style, which is, he's a southpaw, he's a pressure fighter, and he's a tough matchup stylistically for anybody. And then when you add to just the confidence that goes along with it, that can really, in it by itself, transform a fighter. And I think that's what we're seeing with Kayshawn.
Let's move on. We got a long-awaited pro debut of a young lady from Allentown, Pennsylvania, named Leanna Cruz. She's going to take on a 3-fight veteran, Delaney Bailey. Cruz, she was an athlete. She was a basketball player, I believe, in college. And just by the looks of her, in the terms of, she looks like she's ready to go. She's trained hard. I saw her in the gym a couple times when, during the gym, she was, training with some high-level girls as well. Kaylee Reese, I believe, was in the gym, and Ebony Bridges was in the gym. So she was getting some good work getting ready for her pro debut.
She does. I mean, she has a great manager as far as female boxing goes with Brian Cohen. He knows the female game probably better than anybody in this country. The fact that he's willing to work with her, I think, says something about the talent that she has. But what'll be interesting is to see how she handles the adrenaline of her first fight. I mean, again, this is not a fighter with a deep amateur background. Yeah, she's an athlete. She's excelled in other team sports, but we know that boxing is a totally different stage. And so that's what I'm looking for in her fight, is to see, does she come out and does she basically, blow her load in the first minute, or does she feel her opponent out, box a little bit, and then kind of go in for the kill once she has established things in there. And Delaney Bailey, this isn't new for her. She has no pressure on her. She's coming in as the opponent, and this is her fourth professional fight. So I think that Leanna has to manage that adrenaline dump that she's going to have, because we saw it in our last show. We talked about it with one of the young Philadelphia fighters, Eric Monroe. I said that, he's going to have to manage that adrenaline dump, and he didn't, and he got knocked out in the first round.
Got himself into a war and then got knocked out.
Yeah, and he wasn't protecting his chin, he wasn't protecting himself, and he got knocked out. And so, those kind of things can happen for fighters that are making their debut, especially that don't have that amateur experience to rely on.
Just going down the card, the second bout of the evening, another young fighter who has, I think the next two guys who, obviously this week we were talking about some of the more established guys, the Raisa Leans, the Michael Coffees, Michael Fox, who will be in the building calling the fight on Flow Sports. These two guys could be the next two guys that we'll see, along with Atif Overton, obviously, on some of these bigger cards. A 3-0 kid with 3 knockouts from another kid from Reading, Pennsylvania, Marshall's neck of the woods, Julian Gonzalez, taking on a New Yorker named Ronnie Arana, who's 0-1. What can you tell? I believe this is going to be Julian's debut at the 2300 Arena. So he could be a guy that could establish himself as a local attraction. He's got a very, very good style, but he's got fast hands, and I guess you want to inform the fans out there more about Julian Gonzalez.
Yeah, no, I mean, Julian, similar to Kadir Albright, who we'll get to next. I mean, these guys do have fairly deep amateur backgrounds, not to the extent of an Atif Overton, where they fought on the international scene. But these guys have both been in national competitions, well-established amateur prospects. Julian, has an excellent style. Like you mentioned, he's a pressure fighter. He's got power, and he's exciting. He throws a lot of punches, but he's responsible defensively. I don't think this stage will be anything too much for him to handle. I do think, though, this is an interesting test in Ronnie Arana, who's actually an MMA fighter. And, we see a lot of these MMA fighters come over to boxing, and, a lot of times they get stopped in the first round. I don't think this is going to be one of those fights. Ronnie Arana actually is a real mature young man. He's coming down in weight for this, but he said he made it without a problem. Funny, Marshall and I actually drove him to the arena tonight. He has his head on his shoulders. He knows what he's up against, but he has 8 MMA fights and has been at the level of Bellator. In his first boxing fight, he lost a 4-round decision to an undefeated prospect in Harrisburg a couple weeks ago. So this is not, an inconsequential test for Julian. And so, we'll see the level of skills that Julian has, and I think people will be impressed. I mean, he is a kid that Marshall and I anticipate is going to have a successful professional career.
And I guess leading off to the festivities tomorrow night, we've kind of mentioned a little bit, Kadir Albright taking on Humberto Camarena Jr. Got some love for Camarena watching us tonight. Albright's a guy that I know when signed. I mean, Marshall does get excited a lot about guys that he signed, but this definitely was a guy he did. I'm sure you did as well, talking about his potential.
Yeah, I mean, Kadir Albright, he has tremendous potential. He's very tall. He fights at junior welterweight. Tremendous skill. A lot of Philadelphia fans and people in the Philadelphia community will know his cousin, Nadir Albright. Kadir has had a good amateur career, has fought at a high level in the amateurs. Right now, he's training, great gym, great trainer in Philadelphia. And all of, when guys are going to be special, when the other local fighters who are special want to see that guy fight. And when I say the local fighters who are special, I mean people like Paul Kroll, Jaron Ennis, they want to see this guy fight. And those guys are really the best judges of what the quality of these young fighters are. And, I've talked to Paul Kroll about Kadir, and Paul believes that he has what it takes to make it to the highest level of the professional rank. And, they've sparred, they trained together. And so it tells you a lot. Now, what makes this fight so interesting, though, is that Humberto Camarena Jr. is not your typical debut kind of fight for a B-side fighter. He has about 30 plus amateur fights. And so this is a guy who's not coming here to lose. And I think that this could be a fight, that you might see on like a national Golden Glove sort of stage. And so, I mean, when I say it might steal the show, I really believe that. I mean, you could be at a national amateur tournament and see these guys fighting because they're representing their states or their regions. They're both that good. And so that makes this extremely intriguing to me. All the credit in the world for Kadir for accepting the fight and his opponent. It's going to be a really good fight.
And obviously, we're going to have some people watching from Washington. Say that 10 times fast. Watching from Washington, as there's a lot of Camarena. I believe that be Mariano. They're cheering on their relative. They're getting ready to rock and roll. Here's another one, Brittany Holt, Team Cruz. So looks like we got a wide fan base. So it should be a good night, good crowd here tomorrow night. As looks like everyone's going to be represented. More count. I mean, we got more people on from Washington, I think, than we have from anywhere. More Camarena. So he's a very popular guy. So we'll be hearing them probably cheering through the computer tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, I think people that come to these sorts of local shows, I mean, I've always said that King's Promotions does the best local shows in Philadelphia. You just won't get these kind of fights elsewhere, where you have two kind of high-level amateur fighters very early in their careers who were fighting each other in a fight like this. That's really exciting. It's exciting for Marshall and I as the promoters of the fight, and I think, I hope the fans get here early because it's scheduled to be first on the lineup, and it's just not a fight you're going to want to miss.
And like I said on the press conference, the fight started at 8:00, so there's no. I don't want to hear I was stuck in traffic from work and yada yada yada. Usually the fights are 7. This is 8:00, so the fans have no excuses if they want to come down to see this fight, see this terrific 7-bout card tomorrow night.
Right.
You better get here on time.
I'll be here on time. Although it does take quite a while getting through the city.
Yeah, I'm not saying where, because I know that they'll be ringing your phone off the hook, all your fans.
Oh, right.
But you guys are in Center City now these days, huh?
We are. We're in a nice spot, but
I used to live right around there. I used to live a block from where you're staying.
It wasn't easy getting here through the downtown traffic.
So let's before delve into some other King's Promotions business, I just got the news. In fact, it was a few minutes after our press conference that Raisa Leem's fight was postponed. It was postponed probably until October because the Figueroa fight with Stephen Folt was pushed back. It literally happened 5 minutes after I think we ended our thing the other night. A little disappointing, but Raisa will be back.
Yeah, I mean, what can you do? It is disappointing. It sucks. I mean, how many more of these fighters that are asymptomatic are going to test positive for COVID? I mean, from a medical standpoint, I don't even think any of us are sure what any of these asymptomatic COVID tests mean.
Every time we do one of these things, my favorite part is the Dr. Andrew Foy medical report.
Yeah.
I like when you get into that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're seeing this all over sports, and it's extremely disruptive. I mean, take a sport I love like golf. A guy like John Rahm, who's vaccinated, asymptomatic,
in the middle of the
test
tournament.
positive. It's just, this stuff is just getting really disruptive. I'll be happy when the testing for this is over.
What's your handicap, by the way?
I'd rather not disclose that. It doesn't go that high.
Oh, really?
No.
Really? So I see what you're doing. Just in case anyone's watching, you want to get as many strokes as you can. I see how. See, I'm not a golfer, so now I see how this works. You don't say your handicap.
That's right.
Okay. Gotcha. Under double digits, though?
No.
He's like, you can tell her he's a 30 handicap to get 15 aside. Probably.
I mean, under double digits means a 9.
Yeah.
A 9 is extremely good.
I have a good friend of mine, former NFL quarterback, scratch. Unbelievable. They won't let him play any of those celebrity things. He'd give Dilfer and all those guys a run for their air. You ever watch those with Dilfer and Rick Rhoden and Marius, not Lemieux, Dan Quinn, the ex-hockey player. He's one of the best ones. So let's get into some more Kings Promotions business. We will, like we mentioned before, he'll be here. I just saw his father walk by, Michael Fox. Obviously, on August 7th, the judges didn't go his way. The fight went his way, but the 3 blind mice didn't. What do you want to see next for our welterweight from Forestville, Maryland?
I want to see him right back in there with top fighters in the welterweight division. It would be great if that fight, if they would just reverse the decision. I mean, I know making it a no contest or even giving an immediate rematch, it's still not as satisfying. I mean, he won that fight, so in my opinion, so hands down. And I think in the eyes of the boxing public, I mean, it just wasn't a debatable fight. So would like to see that reversed and him name the winner and then go on to fight, some other high-level fights in that division.
When to answer John Lundy's question, he's fighting a guy named Yason Vargas, 17-7, 12 knockouts from Cartagena, Colombia. So that's who Christian's fighting. But one of the things I've noticed about the PBC, almost like the UFC a little bit, that even though you may suffer a loss on paper, there's opportunities to be had there. They'll bring you back and give you the opportunity. We've seen it a bunch of times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the great things about working with PBC with our fighters. If a guy does well and performs, it's rewarded. I mean, even you saw that with Mike. And he lost his fight, and I'm blanking on the name of the fellow right now.
That would have been they got to make me look it up.
The guy that Paul Kroll fought next and won a split decision over. But I thought, Mike won that fight. It was a very close fight. It was an excellent fight. And you could say that Mike got rewarded by getting this last fight that he got. And so, I mean, look how many times Thomas Lamont has fought on PBC shows now.
Yeah,
and the opportunities that he's got.
You put up a good effort, you get rewarded.
Right.
He put up a good effort. Much the same. A lot of people thought maybe he won that fight against Mendoza, Thomas Lamont.
Right.
He got the opportunity. So
I think that Mike will get more opportunities.
He's in the mix, definitely now.
Yeah.
He's definitely in the mix. We touched on it last week. Mike Coffey, another week to think about it. Again, even though he didn't fight well, let's just be honest. We see the guys like Gerald Washington and the Brazils, those kind of guys. They suffer losses, and you see them back. Maybe not a big upwards move, but maybe a sideways move, which in this point will give a guy like Mike Coffey another chance to prove himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike Coffey's going to get more chances. I think it's going to depend what he wants to do. I think he'll get more chances with PBC. PBC loves heavyweights. I mean, to some extent, it's almost hard to justify sometimes, but they love heavyweights. And so I think that Mike will be in the mix for future fights on PBC cards, and he'll have an opportunity to prove himself. He's probably going to have to come in as the B side, but I think it'll probably be a fair fight for him. And he's going to have to do what he needs to do.
So just getting back to this card for tomorrow night, or anything else you want to touch on, Kings promotion wise? Non-September 10th news.
No, I mean, we got a lot of irons in the fire with fighters with upcoming fights.
I think Atif is maybe fighting in the next week again or so.
Yeah, and Atif did it. They had a nice spread on him on the last PBC card.
Under 23. Mm-hmm. One of the fighters to watch.
Yep. So I mean, we have a lot of irons in the fire with our fighters, and there's Alicia Baumgartner as well, who
absolutely. We forget Alicia.
They have this tournament now, I guess, that DAZN or Eddie Hearn announced a couple days ago with the I guess it's the junior welterweights.
Yeah, 140.
But
Brian, who you mentioned, got 3 to 4 girls.
I mean, I think the reality though for me is that Alicia could match up with any of those fighters, and on a given day could beat any of those fighters. I know she's 130, but I could see Alicia winning world titles right now up through 147. And so it's on us to get her those opportunities, and we're working. But I expect big things from her in the next year or so.
Gotcha. So let's get back to this card tomorrow night, September 10th. Here tomorrow night, live at the 2300 Arena. There's some real outstanding storylines to this. You got Outlaw and Torres both coming off losses. Desperate fighters, you think, at this point, or must wins, backs up against the wall, I guess, so to speak.
Well, like I said earlier, I don't think this is as desperate for Greg Outlaw as it is for a guy like Edgar Torres. I mean, arguably Greg Outlaw, could have won his last fight. Certainly I think Edgar has much more to prove at this level of competition based on how he fared against Kayshawn. Now, what makes this interesting is that Outlaw's coming up, and that, is that going to make a difference? He may not have the natural power of Hutchinson, who's been fighting at a heavier weight. So that makes it intriguing, but I think it's more the onus is more on Torres to prove himself, at a little bit better level of competition than it necessarily is for Greg Outlaw, who has fought, some good opponents and, had been successful up until his last outing.
So both guys are coming off long layoffs, and now they're right back at it. So we'll see maybe a better versions of both of those guys tomorrow night.
Oh, I expect to. I mean, the layoff, it's hard to account for the effect that had on these guys, and not with Greg Outlaw. It wasn't just the layoff, but he was coming off of a fairly serious injury and a surgery as well. I'm blanking on exactly what it was right now, but I think it involved his ACL or something like that, or MCL. But so I expect that. I think that Greg Outlaw will be in fine form tomorrow night, and the question is, what's Torres going to bring?
They got Outlaw 8-1, 3 knockouts. Torres 8-1-1 with 4 knockouts. Obviously, the next fight we want to talk about again. What do you want to see out of Christian Cardo? Does he need an explosive performance? Does he need a knockout? Does he need what's he need, in your opinion, for this to be a satisfying effort for him tomorrow night?
I don't think he needs a knockout necessarily. I think what I would be looking for is just, do we see the old Christian Cardo? This guy was probably the most talked about fighter in Philadelphia.
All the promoters were after him.
And, it's not, he got clipped, basically. It's not like he was losing the fight up until that happened. I mean, I guess theoretically speaking, it could happen to anybody in boxing. So, what I would just like to see is, does he look like in the ring? Does he look like his old self? Is he going to be, where's his confidence? Because if he's confident, the Christian Cardo that everybody's used to seeing is an aggressive, pressure fighter. I mean, similar to like an old school Manny Pacquiao. Coming forward, putting his punches together in combination, and just kind of overwhelming his opponents. And Christian has some good wins on his resume. There was a top-ranked amateur, in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, and again, to get to that level of the national amateur rankings, you have to fight fights that are more like a professional fight than an amateur fight. And so there's no doubt that Christian can handle that level of competition.
Mm-hmm.
He got clipped, so what's his confidence going to be? And I think we're going to see him fight well, and he's going to perform, like the Christian Cardo that people know and expect.
Got some Christian Cardo. John Lundy says he's 5 good rounds and a knockout.
Yeah.
Got some more. Cardo will be unstoppable again. He very well could be.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, as you say, that could be the wick that lights everything and gets everything going again. Got some more. Who's training Christian now? Do you know that?
I believe Bozianis.
That's that's a great gym to be in. So I mean that could.
Again, it's just being around a gym like that with a trainer who has the success that he has right now. Mikey Rosado is right. It's Bozy and it's Rasheen.
Yeah, this is why we have the best fans out there. They help each other out. I mean, when they're listening, they help each other out. I mean, he asks a question, bang, one of our other viewers has the answer, even before we do. And we should know that before anybody.
But I think that's an important point, though, is that I think that, the confidence that comes from being around trainers like Bozy and Rasheem, and in a gym around fighters like Boots and the other fighters who are there. I mean, I think that becomes contagious, and I think it will help in terms of where's his confidence at for this fight. I expect we're going to see an excellent version of him, maybe even better than what's been seen in the past.
Got Greg Serb calling all the fighters up. We're getting ever so close to our weigh-in here. Should start hopefully very soon. I have another show to do at 7 o'clock, so we got to get this done. I got to get out of here. So it's not boxing now.
I don't know. I'm not sure that's going to happen, Marc.
No, I think I live 4 minutes from here, so I just have to get the Uber and get out of here. I don't have the limo anymore, so
yeah.
I don't know. We got a heckler here. I don't know who this Mr. Pigeon, but keep tuning in. I hope you're enjoying our show. Back to Elijah Morales and Kevin Davia. And John Lundy keeps spelling my name wrong. It's M-A-R-C, John, not M-A-R-K. Elijah Morales take on Kevin Davia. We got the man here. I think Brian Coney. Well, Brian Coney was like begging to come on before.
Begging to come on this thing?
Yeah.
I'll break your little headphone.
Listen to him. He manages a couple world champions. He thinks he's.
That was a threat, Marc.
How long I go back with Brian? I go back with him.
I know.
Too long.
So what you were asking about
Elijah Morales and Kevin Davia. What can you tell us about Kevin Davia? Another guy, I see we have a couple guys here from Washington State.
Well, I mean, look, he's a guy that he's an opponent, but he knows how to survive. When you get these guys that are this far along in their career and they're approved in a state like Pennsylvania to fight an undefeated prospect, they're probably sturdy because Greg Serb, who's the state commissioner, doesn't usually approve those sorts of fights if it's going to be a blowout. And so, this guy has 16 fights. I think it's going to be a good test of Elijah Morales. And I think we're going to see him go rounds, and we're going to see a good fight.
Kayshawn Hutchinson once again. 4 in a row, 5 and 4 in a row. He's won
5 in a row.
5 in a row. Taking on Andre Bird of Jacksonville, Florida. Well, again, we focused a lot on the quote blue corner. Just I want to go down and talk about some of the red corner fighters. Andre Bird, you said he's built good. He's a 20-fight veteran. What do you think he can pose just by looking? I know you said he's not the tallest guy in the world, Andre Bird, but he's real strong looking.
Real strong looking guy. I think he's very similar to a fighter like Andrew Rogers last fight, who came in and upset Greg Outlaw. Bird is the kind of guy, he's been around the block. He's fought a lot of undefeated fighters. He's always presented a good test, which is why, he gets approved for these sorts of fights. And again, I mean, Greg Serb doesn't let these kind of journeymen that just take loss after loss after uncompetitive loss, he doesn't approve them. And so that it's going to be a competitive fight. One thing I'll say about Andre Bird, because I did do a physical on him earlier, is that, his heart rate was in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
And what that tells you is that he's not nervous.
No.
And he was having a conversation on his phone.
I've never heard that.
And when you see that, I mean, a lot of times fighters come to these fights, they're nervous. I mean, their heart rate's going, their blood pressure's up, and this guy, he wouldn't even know he had a fight. And I think that just shows you. I mean, he's a professional, he's confident, and he's not really worried about this. I think he knows he's going to be in for a stiff test, and he's ready to go.
Leanna Cruz taking on Delaney Bailey. Bailey 0-3. Cruz making her pro debut, but like you said, Bailey's is a veteran in there compared to Leanna Cruz.
Right. Yeah. And in women's boxing, it takes a little longer to get 3 fights than it does in the men's game. She's been around. I don't think she's going to be nervous for this. She has nothing to lose. And it'll be interesting to see how Leanna kind of manages the adrenaline. And that's going to be a new experience for her.
There's Leanna, who just walked right behind us. You probably heard us talking about her. Julian Gonzalez taking on Ronnie Arana. Again, Arana, you said a MMA guy, veteran. Even though he's 0-1 in boxing, said he's had about 8 MMA fights. 8
MMA fights. He has a 500 record. He's fought in Bellator. So this is a well above average MMA fighter who's crossing over to boxing. He has the striking experience. And in his first boxing fight, which was only a couple weeks ago in Harrisburg, he went the distance with a 2-0 prospect. So, and he's coming down in weight, and he made this weight easy. He's going to look very big in the ring tomorrow night. I think he's going to be comfortable, and I think we can expect him to really present a great test to Julian Gonzalez, and I think we can expect Julian Gonzalez is going to rise to the occasion and show off, the top of his skill set.
Here's a question.
Because he's going to have to win a fight like this.
Here's a question I have. There actually was a fight in Harrisburg, and Titans Promotions actually let another promoter invade Harrisburg. How'd that happen?
Because Titans Promotions is no longer in existence. It was merged with King's Promotions.
As long as Andrew Floyd's walking this earth, Titans, there's at least remnants of Titans Promotions.
It's here.
I hear you.
It's here, Mark. No, I mean, look, anybody can.
No, I know. I'm only kidding, but that for a good five years or so, Titans Promotion, the boxing climate was what was you and your outstanding shows that you put on.
It was not. It was a couple year run.
It felt like 5. Don't correct me.
It felt like
wrong.
5 to my bank account.
No comment on that. Don't ever correct me when I'm wrong. But so how was that show? It was a good show. You said Julian Gonzalez was on it, or Arana was on it.
Yeah. I wasn't at the show. I couldn't make it with work, but I can't say too much about it.
Any other fights? Maybe we'll step outside a little bit in terms of what's going on in the world of boxing. Any fights you're looking forward to? Anything of interest to you coming up or just happened?
Well, I'm very much looking forward to the Figueroa Fulton unification fight. Still am. Hopefully it happens sooner rather than later, and looking forward to see what our guy Ray Salim does because I think
Eduardo
that he's
Baez.
actually the best in that division. So that was one. And of course, I'm looking forward. We were talking on our way over here actually with Ronnie, but looking forward to the Caleb Plant fight.
I'm going to that.
I'm sure you are.
Book my hotel room, booking my flight tonight.
But you know what? I'll be curious as to your thoughts on it. But I haven't heard too many people giving Plant that much of a chance.
And I ain't joining that. Not too many either.
But what I would say is that the fighters that Canelo's had trouble with in his career tend to be slick boxers. And since Canelo has moved up in weight, all of the guys that he's fought are pretty flat-footed.
Oh, Billy Joe Saunders is as slick as they come, or supposedly.
But Saunders is smaller, right? I mean, you're right. You're actually right about that. See, this is why they have you, Marc. But I think that Plant at that weight is better than Saunders, and it's not like Saunders wasn't giving Canelo a test.
According to Chris Mannix, Saunders was winning the fight. So
I don't think he was winning the fight, but he was giving him a test, and he got that orbital fracture, and it is what it is. But so I think if Saunders could test him, and Saunders doesn't have the height. And I think some of the skill set that Plant does, I think this is going to be a really tough test for Canelo. I think it's going to be a great fight. I do think Canelo is going to win the fight. I just think it's going to be a real test.
John Lundy, I think Sonny Kanto was injured. I think he'll be back really soon. Got some other.
I have no insight on that.
Let's see here.
My man, Mikey. Yeah, Mikey knows.
Plant could give him some trouble. Canelo just can't let him Plant get comfortable. I think after a couple rounds, when it's realized that Plant doesn't have what it takes to kind of fend off Canelo Alvarez, then it's going to be, what do they say? It's going to be a wrap. That's what I think. I'm going to go out there and check that fight out.
All right. Another fight we were talking about on the way over here is Joshua Usyk. Marshall and I both are of the opinion that Usyk's going to win the fight.
It wouldn't shock me. It would not shock. I think the very least he definitely is going to give Joshua some problems.
Yeah, I mean, I just see Usyk as one of these guys that he'll figure. I think it's going to probably be a slow first couple rounds.
Could be.
Almost like Usyk's fight with Bello was. But once Usyk figures it out, I don't think Joshua is going to be able to handle his boxing intelligence. And people act like Usyk's small. I mean, he's the same size as Joshua.
He is a pretty good guy.
So I just don't think that Joshua is going to have. He's never fought anybody like Usyk before.
No. Left-handed, crafty. Like you said, the high boxing IQ. Olympic gold medal winner. I believe. Olympic gold medal winner. He's got a lot of the attributes. He's got a lot of things.
His defense is. I mean, I've never seen Usyk even clipped. I mean, people can't get to him. And I mean, could Joshua with his size have? He probably has a better opportunity. But with Usyk coming up in weight, I expect Joshua to be much slower.
Yeah.
Even though, he's trying to take off muscle and whatnot, but I expect him to look like the much slower fighter in this fight.
Getting close to our weigh-in, as you see everything going on. We see Greg Serb in the background doing all the paperwork. That's Delaney Bailey.
Yeah.
I believe it's
and Delaney, I saw her coming in here. She seems very relaxed. And again, there's so much you can tell from how a fighter is going to perform, I think, based on just how they're carrying themselves at the weigh-in. She seems very relaxed. So I think that I expect that she's going to look comfortable in there, and it's going to be a good fight for Leanna.
I think we're getting close here. I don't know. Even Greg Serb, who runs a real swift, tight ship here in PA, who you've dealt with many times, and you're still today, and especially when Titans Promotions was running strong for those 2 hard years. You're a lot of dealings with them, and like I said, thank God you have friends, Russ. So no one would be commenting. Can't wait for Andrew to bring another. There we go.
Yeah, well, that would be nice, but we'll see. I mean, we did some great shows in Harrisburg at the Farm Show Complex. The limitation of Harrisburg is not a fault of Harrisburg. It's a problem with economics and boxing, which is it's economies of scale, and Harrisburg's a small city. And to do these events at places like the Farm Show or even the Zembo Shrine, it actually costs more for venue rental and setup in Harrisburg than it does in Philadelphia. Now, you tell me how that would make sense when the population size of Philadelphia is 50 times, right? And I mean, it's one of the greatest boxing cities in the world. So, it's a challenge. But those were some great shows, and hopefully we can get back there soon with King's Promotions.
So hold on, we've discussed medical stuff, economics, boxing. What else have we discussed? The weather. We haven't touched on that yet. Just we're just trying to fill the weigh-in should start any minute. So we got Canelo playing. I'm trying to think. They just announced hopefully Teofimo Lopez going to fight Kambosos finally Monday night.
You think that fight's going to happen?
Yeah, I believe so. I just bought a train ticket to go up there on October 4th. So
Kambosos is he's talking the talk. I can't see him presenting a huge test to Teofimo Lopez. And this is one of those fights where I think the more confident that Kambosos is, the more likely he is to get stopped early. He just doesn't have the level of skill of a Teofimo Lopez.
He's actually not a bad fighter.
No,
but
he's not.
He's just not. I just think he's not Teofimo Lopez.
I mean, you look at guys like this, he's almost like a Michael Casitas, and we all know what happened to Casitas when he went up, to the highest level of the pro ranks, and he would get stopped. So, I mean, yeah, he might win a title, and that's a great thing. We'd be thrilled if any of our fighters won a world title, but you're talking about fighting one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world, who's Teofimo Lopez. I just don't think he's on that level.
There we go. I thought they were shutting the lights on us for a minute. So we are just moments away from our weigh-in here at the 2300 Arena here in South Philadelphia. What a tremendous venue this is.
Oh, I mean, and they've actually, every time they do a new renovation to it, it's just awesome. I still remember when it was the ECW arena. Those are back in my earliest days.
I used to sit backstage. A very close friend of mine was one of the biggest stars of ECW, so we used to sit backstage.
The first time I came here, Marc, was actually when it was called the New Alhambra. And it was I believe it was USA show, and Bronco McCart was the main event. Okay. And remember that fight?
Yeah.
It was an awesome fight.
It was Russell Peltz's show.
May have been. And I came because one of my gym mates who I trained with way back in the day, Larry Marks. Remember Larry the Laser Marks?
Out of Delaware.
Fought Andrew Lewis for the world title. Knocked him down in the first round, and then just didn't capitalize on it. Lost the decision. But Larry was fighting. It was one of the last fights of his career. And I was at Jefferson for med school, walked out of my building, and it must have been when people still hung the flyers on the telephone poles. And I saw it, and I saw Larry, and thought, I'm going to get down there. And it was an amazing experience. The place was rocking. There was a fight that night between one of the Irish fighters from Scranton and a guy from, I believe, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I was here.
And I
was at
thought the
every one
guy
of those fights.
was going to decapitate the Irish fighter.
Wow.
I think he left on a stretcher.
I was at all those fights. Just we were fortunate.
Outlaw Torres on the scale.
Oh, we're weighing
All
in.
right.
We're weighing in.
So we're going to do the main event first in Greg Serb fashion.
Everybody's got to be back at 4 o'clock for COVID testing. If you have your vaccination card, bring it with you tomorrow.
Got some good light for this.
Yeah. They have this set up nice.
$145.7. That's good.
145.7 for Greg Outlaw.
Yeah, it looks great. Always is in great shape.
Take your time, Eddie. I ain't got no place to be. $145.2, good.
Edgar Torres looks more tight. His body looks tighter this fight than he did last time.
Cardo Vargas on the scale.
Here comes Christian Cardo and Kayshawn Vargas.
Oh, yeah. I would say come up by 5. No.
This is a 6-round bantamweight fight. Christian Cardo on the scale now.
120.3, good.
20.3 pounds for the native of South Philadelphia. 17-1 with 11 knockouts. Here comes Kayshawn Vargas, 17-7 with 12.
120.6, good.
120.6.
Hutchinson on the scale.
Start time tomorrow night, 8 p.m.
4 o'clock.
Here comes Kayshawn Hutchinson and Andre Berg. This will be a 6-round welterweight fight. Andre Berg.
147.4, good.
147.4.
4 o'clock tomorrow.
Kayshawn Hutchinson checks in at
145.3, good.
45.3.
Right here, folks.
She's doing her test right now. I'll be right back.
I
Davila, Morales,
Told you Bird was built like a brick shit house. It's like a linebacker.
Strong looking guy. Lots of intrigue in all these fights.
Okay, you can take a break away.
This is can't see who this is. Who's this?
We're looking at Kevin Davia right now.
$144.7, good. $145.3, good. Work hard tomorrow. Gonzalez, Arana on the scale.
There's Julian Gonzalez and Ronnie Arana.
Gonzalez, you're up. $129.2, good.
129.2 for Julian Gonzalez. Ronnie Arana.
129.5, good.
129.
Tell me, how, Arana looks like a big 130 pounds, doesn't he?
Sure does.
Albright, Camarena on the scale.
Yeah, this is going to be a real fight.
Next on the scale.
Humberto Camarena.
You got an outlet?
I have
Extension cord?
Yeah.
here. Yo, Marshall. Here, I have.
Where you gotta go to?
Here we go.
Good.
Yep, we're good.
I saved the. I just saved the way.
Well, I don't know about this.
Flip it.
Mark, what would we do without you, Mark?
Maybe I'll be a farmer.
Yeah, let me see.
Look at this. He gives me a plug that. The last one. What the hell is this? Oh, yeah. There you go. It's good.
I just saved the way.
$142.5, good. Albright. $143.5, half pound over.
Now Kadir Albright, a half pound over. He will run. And finally, we have Leanna Cruz and Delaney Bailey.
Let's go. Let's go. See about 20 minutes, get it off.
All right.
Cruz, Bailey on the scale.
There we go. Last weigh-in of the day.
Bailey.
Greg's a little hot.
Delaney Bailey stepping on.
116.9. Very good.
116.9.
115.3. Good.
115.3. So there you have it. Our last weigh-in of the day. Leanna Cruz and Delaney Bailey. So our final thoughts. We'll see everyone here tomorrow night at 2300 Arena. For Marc and Andrew, we will see you tomorrow night. If you can't be here, Flow Sports, 8 p.m. start time. Tickets, very few tickets still on sale, so get them while they last, and we will see you tomorrow night. Any last words, Andrew?
Yeah, no, I hope people come out. This is going to be a great show. I mean, some of these fights are real sleeper fights, but it'd be treated to Philly boxing at its finest if you come out tomorrow night. Hope to see you.
We'll see you tomorrow night.